Hi everyone. This is going to be a kind of shortish practice, almost a sample of one of my classes, if you like. And the theme for today's practice is the third chakra, or the manipura chakra, and this is located in the solar plexus area. And the different chakras are said to govern different emotions, feelings. This one is all about firing up your sense of self. Manipura literally translates as city of gems, so kind of firing up your inner sparkle and inner vitality. So we want to get a balance here, so not kind of too, I guess we'd veer into kind of arrogance on the one side or being insecure on the other side. So here we're looking for a sense of balance in this third solar plexus chakra. So let's get started. So if you'd like to come to a comfortable seat, might be kind of cross-legged at the ankles or perhaps at the shins, or even this side saddle position if you prefer. Now, if you're at home, perhaps you might like to sit on a block if you have it, or a folded up blanket, which just elevates the hips, tilts the pelvis slightly forward to help with this lengthening through the spine. So, as always in my classes, I invite you now to just close your eyes, or if you prefer, you might just find a fixed gazing point, just to help focus the mind. And we'll begin by going inward, taking our attention inward. And if you feel comfortable, you can consider your sense of self at this point. As you take your awareness to your breathing. I'd like to just take your hands lightly placed on the abdomen, just beneath the ribs. So taking your awareness to this manipura chakra area. So as you observe your breathing, taking some more generous breaths in, just observing the rise and fall of the abdomen. As you continue to perhaps take your awareness to this area physically. And potentially consider your sense of self. How do you feel about yourself? Can be quite a brave question to consider. And bringing to mind your sense of inner vitality and sparkle this morning. As you take a couple more of those slightly elongated breaths, And on the exhale, just allowing the perhaps a little sigh and the shoulders to sink away from the ears. And now we'll drop the chin towards the chest. Slowly open the eyes as you take the chin to either side, at either shoulder. Continuing with your deeper breaths. And now let's come up to center. And you might like to change the position of your legs depending on where you are. Okay, now we'll take the arms out in front and just begin to move the wrists, bringing a little bit of motion into the wrists, warming up those joints. And now we'll make some figures of 8 in front of you. And now as you take the arms out to the sides, I'm just going to change the position of my legs, so I might be uncomfortable on the ankle. But take the arms out to the side, just observing the movement of the shoulder blades. As you take the arms back, and you have a feeling of the shoulder blades gliding over the rib cage. And perhaps changing the direction. And now let's lower the arms. We're going to come onto the back and put the block or the blanket to one side. And we'll start off with a couple of almost a kind of dead bug type movements. So knees are over the hips, hands are pointing up towards the ceiling. We're going to inhale. And on the exhale, extend the left arm and the right leg. Inhale, center, exhale, other side. And just continue alternating with this movement. But when you take the limbs, when you extend the limbs and take them long, really be mindful of the lower back. We want the navel drawing towards the spine for a sense of engagement there. And the lower back is grounding down as opposed to arching. So just beginning to fire up our core. Seeing if we can find that sense of inner vitality. And we'll allow the feet now to come down to the floor and take a few bridge poses. So we're going to inhale and on the exhale, lift the hips, really grounding down through the feet, engaging the gluteus muscles, navel to spine. And exhale to lower, taking a breath on the floor. Exhale now to lift the hips, perhaps bringing in the arms. Arms might come to rest behind your head. Keeping the knees in line with the hips. Next exhale, rising up once more. And this time you might choose to lift the heels off the ground for a little calf raise. Just going to step my feet slightly closer to the sitting bones. And staying here for 1 or 2 breaths. And let's exhale to lower, crossing the right leg on top of the left and bending the knees so the calves are down towards the floor. We're going to take the hands to rest either side of the ears, but just be mindful that as we inhale and exhale to peel the head and the shoulders off the floor, keeping the knees above the hips. We want to be mindful of the neck. So the hands aren't really moving the head. They're just gently resting to the sides of the head. And once again, the navel is drawing to the spine as we keep the lower back grounding to the floor. And let's release that side, revisiting our bridge pose once more. Exhale, lifting the hips, perhaps lifting the heels as you come into 4 more times. On the exhale, once more. Coming back to center, now left leg on top of right, really squeezing the thighs together here, and calves still facing the ground, the knees bent. Inhale, and we'll repeat that, peeling the head and shoulders off the floor as we take the face and the elbows slightly closer to the knees. But continuing to squeeze the legs together to help give a boost to the lymphatic system, which drains the waste products from the body. And this compression, once you release it, can help to start stimulate that system. So detoxifying. From here, we'll come onto your side and take a breath on your side. And then coming up to all fours, we will just take a couple of cat-cow. So inhaling, knees are beneath the hips, wrists beneath the shoulders. Keeping that engagement of the navel to the spine. So not letting the abdomen sag. And then from here, preparing for a forearm plank. So lowering the forearms to the ground and the hands. I'm taking the legs back, navel to spine, almost imagining you're wearing a belt and the buckle is shining forward. And from here, you might choose to take a walking plank. So walking each leg out to the side several times before coming to rest in child's pose with the knees slightly wider than the toes. Walking the hands forward once more. And we'll revisit our forearm plank, grounding through the forearms and hands, drawing navel to spine. And once again, you might like to take the legs out to the side. Continue drawing the navel to the spine and keeping the hips quite low. Then we'll lower the knees. And take child's pose once more. Big toes touch. Perhaps bringing to mind your sense of vitality here. And then we'll walk the hands forward. But now coming into a plank, but with the hands on the floor this time. You can take half plank if you prefer, with the knees lowered, perhaps crossed at the ankles. Whichever way, having sense of a line running from head through hips to either knees or ankles. And then from here, we're just going to take some little pulsing movements. So exhale, lift the hips, almost as if you're going into dog. But not quite. So let's revisit child's pose once more. Then we'll come up to all fours. And find downward facing dog. So full pose this time. Knuckles are grounded. Feet hip width apart. Allowing the head to relax. Chest moves towards the thighs. And from here, stepping the right foot forward between the hands and allowing the back heel, so the left heel, to spin down towards the midline and then rising up into warrior one. So you're, just face this way so you can see what I'm doing. You've got the legs almost on train tracks here, rounding down through the front foot, front knee over the front ankle, and that back heel lowered. Okay, so inhale. And on the exhale, we'll draw the hands down towards the body. Inhale to rise. Exhale. Take a humble warrior, so folding forward from the hips, allowing the palms to reach back facing each other. Perhaps the fingers interlace and the hands might move away from the back. Be mindful of your right knee here. Keep it hugging in towards the shoulder. And then inhaling back into warrior one. And then from here, we're going to come into warrior three, which is a balancing pose. So I'll demonstrate this a couple of different ways. Stepping the back foot forward, really grounding down through this right foot, feeling a sense of roots growing down into the earth to bring stability. You might start with the hands on the hips, and then we're going to inhale to find length through the spine, folding forward, coming up onto the big toes of the back foot, little micro bend in that right knee. And then from here, you might begin to experiment with lifting the leg off the ground. Hands might come out wide into this aeroplane variation. And the hip is rolling down. So holding that for a couple of breaths. I'll now just demonstrate it using a prop. So if you're not sure about balance, you can also come into these poses using a shelf, or perhaps you could put a chair in front of you. Just make sure it's quite secure. So we want to be about the length, a metre or so away from the shelf, depending on your length of your torso. Inhale, and on the exhale, lifting that left leg. Hip rolling down to the floor, the foot is flexed. Navel drawing towards the spine. And exhale, let's step out of the pose. From here, we can take you to Tadasana. Folding forward and walking the hands forward. So revisiting downward facing dog pose. You might choose to take child's pose here if you'd like a rest. Otherwise, you can stay in dog for 1 or 2 more breaths. So you have a choice there. We'll meet back in downward facing dog. And then from here, let's step the right foot forward between the hands this time. Actually, no, we're doing the left foot this time, aren't we? So left foot stepping forward and the right heel spinning down, lifting up into our warrior one. So we'll turn to face the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Front knee over the ankle. Back leg is strong, finding your gazing point. And we'll just take a little bit of movement in the pose. So exhale, drawing the elbows in. Just once more. And then folding forward from the hips into our humble warrior, keeping that front knee bent, knee over the ankle, hands reaching back. Perhaps the fingers are interlaced. And lifting away from the back to open through the chest. Then we'll rise up again into warrior one. Perhaps holding for a breath. We'll lower the hands and prepare for warrior three on the second side. So stepping the back foot in, grounding down through the front foot, observing this connection of the foot to the floor. We're on the left side this time, rooting down, growing into the ground. Perhaps a little micro bend in this knee. Let's start with the hands on the hips. Lengthen, fold. Have that abdominal awareness. Now taking the hands out to the sides, perhaps experimenting with lifting this back foot off the floor. You might prefer to keep the toes on the floor for now. So honor where you are today. And if this all feels okay, you might now reach forward with the arms, really drawing navel to spine. And now stepping out of the pose. And once again, a second version, but using the props I have available. So I'm going to fold from my hips, draw the navel to spine, ground down through that left foot, really finding length from tailbone to the fingertips before coming onto my big toes and now lifting that right leg, the hip rolling down. So imagining you're lifting the hip or the leg from the inner thigh to get that engagement. Stay with your breath. And now let's come out of the pose. Inhale. And exhale to make our way down to the floor. We're going to come onto our fronts. So taking the arms out in front of you, legs behind. So ready for locust pose then. Inhale. On the exhale, the pubic bone remains grounded as you lift the right leg, left arm, the chest and head peel off the mat. Keeping that abdominal engagement once more. And exhale to release, perhaps coming onto the side of your cheek. If you wear glasses, you might need to take them off. On the exhale, a sense of release here, allowing the body to sink down and become heavy. Perhaps observing where you might be holding any tension. And then let's come back to center. And on the exhale, gently grounding through the pubic bone, drawing the navel to the spine to initiate this lift of the right arm, left leg. And let's exhale to release. Perhaps opposite cheek this time, resting on the opposite cheek. And then let's come back to center. And for the third time, you might choose to lift both legs and both arms. Or you might prefer just to lift the legs, so up to you. But whatever you're doing, having a sense of lengthening as well as lifting. Let's release, perhaps taking the opposite hand to the opposite elbow this time to just rest the forehead in a crocodile pose. From here, let's take the hands back this time. And next time we peel the chest off the floor, you might choose to bend the knees. You can keep them legs extended if you prefer, but you might want to bend the knees. Reaching the hands back, so palms are facing each other, being mindful of the shoulders, keeping those rolling back so you open through the chest. Keeping the soles lifting towards the sky. And exhaling, releasing once more. Perhaps allowing the heels to roll out to the sides now. And then preparing for our final pose before relaxation. So taking the hands back once more, palms are facing each other. Bending at the knees, inhale, and on an exhale, lifting the head, the chest, shoulders roll back. And you can either keep the soles of the feet pointing towards the sky, or you might choose to lightly clasp the ankles with the hands and go into this bow pose. Thighs lifting. So taking your variation. And after your next breath, coming back into child's pose, perhaps the knees together this time. To just round through the upper back. And after a breath or two here, making your way down to onto your back into Shavasana or resting pose. Now, if you know you like to stay in Shavasana for a long period, you could perhaps pause the video here. So, always snuggling your body down towards the ground. You can keep the knees bent if that's better for your lower back. Allow the knees to rest, otherwise legs straight. Connecting with your breath once more. On the exhale, sense of releasing. Observing whether you're holding any tension, perhaps in the jaw, face. So consciously let go of that tension. And on the exhale, allowing the rest of the body to sink down for a few moments in Shavasana. And now we'll begin to move the fingers and toes, arms and legs, drawing the knees into the chest, perhaps a hug, and then rolling onto one side, perhaps opening the eyes, slowly coming up to seated. And as we take another generous, smooth breath here, perhaps bringing to mind your sense of inner vitality and inner energy. Thank you very much for practicing.